I call my music organic moonshine roots music, which I know is a funny name, but because I have these big dreadlocks going all over the place and, you know, my skin tone and different things, it was very hard for people to like come into my music without assuming that I was going to break out in a Marley song. So what I started doing was calling it organic moonshine roots music, because when I thought about what kind of music is this, I thought, well, it's just Southern music. It's just rootsy. It's just folky. It's just bluesy. It's just gospel-y. It's just a little soulfully, you know. And I couldn't really put my finger on it, or any of these long fingers on it. So I just said, how about I call it roots? Because all of the musicians that I'm inspired by are roots artists. They could go in the roots or Americana vein. So why don't I just go with roots? And then it's been a really organic process. I've been playing for almost 10 years now, but I started in my early 20s with guitar. And I thought, oh God, I'll never be able to play chord to chord without big gaps. Push hard. And so over time, you know, like gardening and having unfertile soil, I keep on working on the soil, keep on letting the rain water it, and hopefully one day I'll get some beautiful plants and flowers. And so this is the time of that many years of organically growing the music and selling CDs out of the back of my trunk and busking and playing at coffee shops and bars. And now I get to come and play at a beautiful place where people are actually here for the music. And like you said, it's not a church, but it felt very holy. So I don't know. But the people that inspire me more than anything are people like Jesse Mayhem Phil and Maybelle Carter and Joanna Newsom, who I see you've had here, and the magic of that type of music. You can't really say that they do one thing. Elizabeth Cotton, she does folk, but she also does blues, and they're just beautiful, and I love that, and it inspires me. It's a funny thing, because just like I didn't start playing until I got into my early 20s, I really didn't listen to roots music with attention until I got out of my parents' house when I turned 18 and I moved to Memphis. So that's why I always talk about Memphis, because Memphis changed my life musically. Because when I would go to a coffee shop or I would go anywhere, you know, just around town, I would hear, you know, finger-picking Mississippi John Hurt playing a song that I used to sing in church. We had no instruments in our church. And when I heard him playing Farther Along, I was like, oh my God, who is that? It's beautiful. I've got to learn how to play guitar like that. You know, so it was a while before I really knew that roots music and that Americana and country blues was what I really loved, because I had been singing this music all my life, but I didn't really pay attention to it. It was in the background. And when I moved to Memphis, because I was around a lot of artists and musicians, it came to the forefront. And the Carter family, I mean, we sang these songs. You Gotta Walk That Lonesome Highway. We sang them. I sang them from the time I was born till I was 18 and I was going into Church of Christ. I sang them. There were no instruments, though. So when I heard Maybelle playing, I was like, that's what it could sound like with the guitar? Oh my God. So it just kind of blew my mind, and I wanted to dive into it. And as I started to dive into it, more artists popped up. Like, it's endless. And why is it endless? Because it's people's music. Anybody anywhere is playing it. They don't have to be famous to play it, but they play it well. You know, like Olabelle Reed, or, you know, there's beautiful, like we talked about Jimmy Rogers earlier today. It's endless. There's people everywhere playing awesome roots music. So I think that's also what attracted me to it, was just how forgiving and sweet and personal it can be. When I was very young, I started writing songs, but just like I said, that I didn't realize this is, you know, when you just do what you do. People just do what they do. Children come in who want to be painters, and they just paint. when they're little. And then as they get older and they have to figure out what they're going to do, then they might say, well, maybe I should study this and become an artist. But I was singing. I was singing when I was really little, and I was singing about frogs and creeks and trees and rainbows and all kinds of crazy stuff, making up songs. And I didn't realize that I was writing songs and I was following the voices that I was hearing at that time. It was just a natural thing. That was just what I was doing. But when I got older and I was like, I think I'm supposed to be writing songs, that's when I became conscious of it. And I was like, wow, okay, this is the thing. But I've been doing it, ever since I could really talk. And it's funny because oftentimes songs, when they come, voices, they come and they sound a little bit like baby talk, like, and you're like, I was embarrassed the first time I went in to write songs with somebody, especially Dan. I was like really, really embarrassed because it's like all this, I'm gonna have to do that in front of somebody else. And so just learning that other songwriters hear music in different ways and write in different ways, that was really cool for me. And just learning how to be okay with the way that I write songs and the way that songs come to me, and not to judge it, just to let it be a process that just happens. Okay, so that one came with a little gibbity-gop in it. And now here it is shaping into words. And now here I am singing them. So,
and each one takes on a life of its own.
They do.
Has its own personality, its own history.
Even every single time you play them, they're different. Every single time you play them, and with different people, they take the different lives, and they just shape and move in different ways. They're so alive. All the songs are. You cannot tell them what to do.
With Dan Auerbach from the Black Keys must have been a revelation in a lot of ways, and education must have been a great experience.
It was. It was like the songwriting was the best part. The actual recording was very difficult for me because I've never been in a studio with a producer. And, I was very untamed in the way that I was working, And just having two producers like Kevin and Dan, they were side by side, and their ideas and my ideas, and then the musicians had ideas, and we were just like, it was like 7 days of being like totally surrounded by music and ideas, and I was just swimming in it all. And then what I really, really, really loved was the time when, like the first time we got together, we wrote 2 songs. The first time. The second time we got together, we wrote like 3 songs. And it was just effortless. And it was so beautiful. And it was just like, this is what it's like to write songs with people, with others. This is what it's like to share this with somebody else, what I've been doing. And it was magical. And so that really hooked me. And then to get into the studio, it was a totally different thing because we wrote a song like Can't Be Told in the studio, and that came alive in the studio with other people watching the process that we had, with 5 songs. Now here we are having all of these people joining us. And it was fun. It was really fun at the end of the day to look back and look at the process of the writing and stuff. And when I look at the process of the recording, I just say, whoa, that was a fast train. It was a fast train. And it came through, and we did it in 7 days, like God built this earth, I guess. As I've gone along the path, and this is a journey towards following my dream, and I really, when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life when I was a teenager, I was kind of like, well, I kind of want to follow a dream. I want to see if it's true, if you believe in something and you work really hard towards it. I want to see if it's real and it's true, that maybe you can manifest a dream. So that became important to me. But then all of these different obstacles started to pop up, like mushrooms. And many of them I created myself. And why did I create these obstacles? I don't know. But we do that. People do that. We wake up in the morning and maybe we didn't create it, but there's a mushroom. And there's another one, and there's another one. And we just have to say, okay, these are obstacles, these are challenges. How am I going to deal with this challenge? How am I going to work with this challenge? What's my method? And how am I going to live with it? Because it's not going to go away. These things don't go away. They come up the next day, and oh God, it's a flat tire. Living the blues, killing the blues, just living it. And so why would you want to just erase it? I don't want to erase it. I want to learn how to live with it. And so here it comes. It's all coming in. And it's like a stone, many different stones, and that's what I call them. I like wearing the turquoise stones, but I call them stones, and they come in different sizes. And they're really your best friend, you know, my best friend. And at first I looked at them and I was like, oh, they're ugly. I hate them. I want them to go. They're enemies. But when you take them, the challenges and the obstacles, the stones, and you say, okay, here you are again. What am I going to do with you? Well, when I was making this record, I felt I should push it. I should push it. I should push it. And then it started coming back. And I was like, oh, crap, I need some help. And so that's when Dan came in and he started helping me. And then Kevin came in and he started helping the musicians and people from Hungary and, you know, Booker T. And we just pushed this stone. So that's my personal example of how I dealt with the stone in my life. But there are lots of different ways you can deal with it, you know. I don't think it's always appropriate to push a stone. I think sometimes you should just sit with it and you should just be like, okay, look at you. All right. You know, and it's really funny because one of my favorite writers is Paulo Coelho, and a friend of mine sent me a link to a blog that he has, and he posted a story about a guy. It's called Pushing the Stone. And this guy's pushing the stone, and he's pushing really, really hard, and he's talking to an angel as he's pushing it. And he's like, gosh, why did you give me this job, Angel? And Angel's like, at the end of the story, I'm not going to tell you everything, but just at the end of the story, the angel just says, you know, the goal is not for you to move this stone. Look at how strong you are. Look at how, like, you know, your muscles are built from your head to your toes, and you're just doing really, really good, and you're way stronger than you were when you first started. And my goal in giving you this task of pushing the stone was just to strengthen you. So I don't think it's always necessary that we move it anywhere. But when it starts rolling back on you, you do kind of want to get some help. So